Welcome to this unique episode of the Sparkr Podcast, where it's my privilege to talk to exceptional people about strategy, innovation, and leadership. Today's guest is the exceptional explorer and mountaineer Anja Blacha. She holds a world record because she was the first woman to ski solo from the coast of Antarctica to the South Pole, covering over 1,300 kilometers in 58 days, with snowstorms up to 100 kilometers per hour, temperatures of minus 35 degrees, and a sledge with all her supplies weighing 100 kilograms. And as if this weren't enough, she's also an extreme mountaineer who has climbed almost all of the 8,000-meter peaks on this planet without supplemental oxygen. For example, just last May 2025, she climbed Mount Everest. So it's fair to say that Anja is destined to share her insights on how to make the right decisions, perform to the highest levels, and stay mentally strong under pressure. Something that we can all benefit from learning more about. So I want to find out how we as corporate explorers and entrepreneurs can benefit from Anja's rich histories of expeditions to some of the most dangerous places on this planet. Please enjoy this inspiring conversation with the explorer and mountaineer Anja Blacha. Welcome, Anja. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us. I don't know about you guys, but when I see this footage of this vast landscape of Antarctica, the plane, you're landing there, and now I'll try to imagine you're there in Antarctica. You know the plane is about to leave in like 3 minutes, and then you're all alone. And now I'm wondering what takes more courage or willpower? Is it to actually step into the adventure in this exact moment, or is it then enduring the adventure once you have started?
I would definitely say that the moment I stepped out into this vast, wide landscape took a lot more courage, because this was a moment where my comfort zone or my safe space was still within reach. I could say, oh no, actually, I don't want to do this. But I had to make this conscious leap of faith into the unknown, and that takes a lot of courage. Once I was out there, I didn't have a choice anymore. I was forced to deal with whatever Antarctica threw at me. And of course, there were moments where it still took some courage to face strong winds and to get out in a very adverse situation. But it was nowhere compared to the moment the amount of courage it takes to step out there.
I'm curious to hear from you. I mean, we have a lot of entrepreneurs here in the room, business executives and so on. And in a way, if you live in Switzerland, per default, you have a comfortable life. And I would argue that, for example, being employed, having a, let's say, easy job is more comfortable than being an entrepreneur. And also, of course, a walk in the park on a sunny Sunday is more comfortable than climbing Mount Everest. So why do you decide to choose the hard path? Why do you choose the struggle?
I would like to answer this first of all with a question. When we look back at our past lives, what are the moments that we are most proud of? What are the moments that we remember? What are the moments that shape us as a person and made us who we are today? And I think, yes, there might be beautiful, blissful moments among them, but I do believe that the more standout moments are those where we've realized we're capable of something. We're capable of overcoming challenges. We're capable of overcoming those hurdles. And that's when we can look back and say, wow, I've grown and I can be proud of it.
Is this like the main reason you would say why you decide to leave your comfort zone again and again? Or what's the driver behind it?
I mean, initially it all started for me with just the realization when you spend long days in London in an office environment and you go on holidays and you go for a walk or multi-day hike. That was my first multi-day hike, aged 23. It's really good for the body and the mind. And I was like, I want to experience that again. So with my next holiday, I went out again, and then with every holiday I did a new mountain, a new challenge. I learned, I grew, I stepped out into the world of mountains and icy deserts. But besides that, nature connection and that, being active and doing something for mind and body, I'm goal driven. And if I know this is what I'm struggling for, this is what I'm suffering for, because I want to reach that high point, because I want to get to the South Pole, because I want to get to a destination, then this gives me so much more energy and so much more, ability to overcome things where if I was just going to go in a circle, I would stop immediately.
Okay. So you said you had your first serious hike with 23. I would say that escalated quite quickly. So how many 8,000er mountains have you climbed by now, or how often?
I've done 12 different 8,000 meter peaks without bottled oxygen, so 2 missing. And Everest I did 3 times. It was my first one. Then I tried without oxygen, but I had to take oxygen in the end. And now finally, 2 weeks ago, I made it.
It's funny in a conversation I saw with you. You said, or you were asked, what's the difference with oxygen, without oxygen? The difference is huge. And I think you made a funny metaphor. You said, going on Mount Everest without oxygen is like trying to walk a straight line after 2 nights without sleep and after drinking a bottle of vodka. That's quite specific. So, in other words, it's really tough. But can you explain a bit more the challenges surrounded with it?
Yeah, I mean, when you climb an 8,000 meter peak, you enter a so-called death zone. That's an area where you have about 1/3 of the amount of oxygen available that we have at sea level. So imagine you can only take every 3rd breath to get oxygen into your body. So this oxygen deprivation leads to a lot of further effects in your body, like the blood gets thicker, and then it's cold, and your vessels are getting tighter. You don't have good blood circulation throughout your whole body and your brain. You're actually losing brain cells up there, and you're not supposed to survive for much more than 48 hours, even without doing sports. And then you still have this 1,000 meters of climb from the highest camp to the summit, and then you need to get back down again. And that does a lot to your whole ability to do things. And so for me, what is key before I go there is, first of all, of course, acclimatization, getting the body used to less and less oxygen. But also, I need to know how to do things safely in a way that they have become second nature. So that even when I feel like I just had a bottle of vodka after not sleeping for 2 nights, I still know how to put my safety gear, like my carabiners, my belay device, my Joomer, appropriately. I still know how to handle everything without having to think about it consciously. So those things need to become second nature, so that even in the death zone, I'm still acting as safely as possible.
Going from the death zone of the mountains to another death zone, the Antarctic. I mean, these are really strong winds, and I can't imagine how you build up a tent in these kinds of circumstances, but you did. So I guess that's what you mean with it's second nature. You don't have to think about it. It's a strong routine.
Exactly. I spent several trips practicing and training those skills. Like 1 year before I went to Antarctica, I've never stood on cross-country skis in my life before. And so I had to learn everything from scratch. And I went to Norway, I went to Svalbard, I went to Greenland. And especially in Greenland, I had a 4-week trip. And every single day we had beautiful weather, which was amazing. But it didn't force me or teach me to do things safely out of necessity. But still, I made myself set up the tent with big mittens, with my goggles on that are fogged up, and doing every move in the same way over and over again. And I knew how to clip in my tent so it can't blow away even if I let go of it. And so when that heavy storm came, I didn't want to go out, and I was absolutely worried about packing down my tent because I need to pack it up again. But then I reminded myself, this is what I trained for. Now is a time to put it into practice.
You shared with me when we had a conversation earlier that not too long ago, when climbing one of the mountains, there's a passage on the route that is kind of like objectively known as a super dangerous zone with a lot of avalanche risks. How do you approach these situations of knowing that you're now entering life-threatening territory, but you do it anyway? So what's happening here? There are many questions here. So first of all, do you feel fear? If no, why? If yes, what do you do about it to still be able to move forward?
First of all, I'm a human being. I do feel fear, and I think it's essential for us as humankind to survive. But mostly with those challenges, what I feel is respect. I'm like, okay, I know there's something that is dangerous, that can be life-threatening. And I know I need to go through that. And then I try to not get overwhelmed with fear, because fear usually makes us panic and become hectic and fast and negligent, or it makes us be paralyzed. We don't act or move at all. I say, okay, I need to stay focused on everything I can do to minimize the risk for myself and to get through that situation. And in this case, I guess you're referring to Annapurna, which is one of the 8,000 meter peaks, and it is the deadliest of them. Until a few years ago, it was a death rate of more than 30%.
Of all the people trying to get up there, 30% don't come back.
Statistics have improved, but still it is life-threatening. And you have to go through a passage where it's not a matter of, oh, there was fresh snow yesterday, so we shouldn't go today. It's a matter of there's constant avalanche risk. And I got hit by an avalanche, and I got showered in snow and ice, and I didn't know that moment whether I would survive or not. Luckily I did. It was a small avalanche, and I could get enough shelter from an ice wall that I was pressing myself against. But most of all, I made the conscious decision, when I want to climb Annapurna, I have to accept that this risk exists. If I don't want to accept that risk, I don't go. But for me, the chances of reaching the summit and of navigating it and surviving were big enough that I said I'm willing to accept it.
What are the types of routines or rituals or tactics that you have to, in this moment where I imagine I would be completely frozen, I wouldn't know what to do? What are your routines or habits that, how do you prepare so that you're capable of reacting smartly in this moment?
I don't have specific routines. Like, for example, if people want to look into routines, maybe the rugby players with their red to blue hat are a good example, because they really also need to go from emotions and anger, perhaps, at the opponent, to like focus and goal and solution oriented. And they are oftentimes taught to do things like, for example, snip your finger or stamp on the floor. Give yourself one signal that always grounds you. What I find has helped me is, this wasn't the first time in my life I was pushed out of my comfort zone. I had pushed myself out of my comfort zone, so to speak, so many times that I was familiar with the feeling of being uncomfortable, being challenged, being stressed, and focusing myself again on what do I need to do now, which in that case was checking that everybody else was okay who was hit by the avalanche, and then getting out of that zone as quickly as possible. Oftentimes we can't choose when life is pushing us out of our comfort zone. Things happen to us. And I think the more often we have experienced that feeling of being stressed and challenged, the easier it becomes for us to deal with the situations where we couldn't choose it.
I think you have an interesting relationship to this concept of comfort zone. Obviously, you leave it a lot. On the other hand, I would assume that to be able to think sharply in these moments, you shouldn't be like constantly over your limits. What's your relationship with pushing yourself, but maybe not too much, so that you are still thinking clearly, acting clearly? So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably two seemingly contradictory thoughts at work. The one is I'm saying, let's get out of our comfort zone, let's push ourselves, let's get out there. But when I'm out there, I try to not go to my limits. What do I mean with that? Like, if I am on a summit push on a big mountain, or if I am doing a long, long day in a polar environment, there's always something that can happen that is outside of my control. And I always need to retain a buffer of mental, physical energy where I'm still able to react. If I have burned out myself, and by the end of the day, I'm in the Arctic Ocean and there's a big water lead in front of me, some ice boulders and a perfect hiding spot for polar bears, I can't camp there. I have a problem, but I'm out of energy and I can't react anymore. If I said I want to reach the summit and I will give everything I have to get up there, I'm not going to get down there anymore. Or there is an avalanche happening, or there is the rope cut and we need to react, or somebody has a problem and needs my help. I need to have a retainer of energy always to react to things I didn't plan for, I didn't expect, that are unfavorable. So when I step outside of my comfort zone, I don't go to my limits. I always keep a retainer.
And how have you learned to sense this correctly? I mean, it's not always easy to hear your inner voice or to have a good understanding of what your limits are and so forth. What have you learned about understanding yourself well, and what can others maybe do to also get more in tune with this inner voice of understanding the limits and so on?
I think actually the answer is just what you said, getting in tune with your inner voice again. Like, of course, sometimes I might wear a smartwatch for tracking purposes and so on. But if I need my watch to tell me if I slept enough, drank enough, burned enough calories, went enough steps today, I'm probably out of tune with my body. I need to learn to listen to it again. And what's really important is I can't rely on other people, because they can only look at me and say, oh, you still look okay. And maybe I'm extremely fatigued. And they say, oh, you can go on, you'll make it. Or they'll look at me and like, you look tired, but actually I'm just unmotivated, but I still have a lot of energy left. Other people can't tell me where my limit is. And also when other people still keep going, maybe I shouldn't keep going, or vice versa. Maybe they stop, but I'm still good to go. So I think there's no shortcut to learning to listen to ourselves again and being honest with ourselves.
As I mentioned earlier, you have been alone for 58 days in Antarctica during this polar expedition. Is this being alone with yourself, with your thoughts, is this something that helps to get in tune with the inner voice? Or is it much, much earlier when at home making preparations for like physical and mental training? What are good sources for you, or tips, so to speak?
I would say like I had to be ready before I stepped out into the loneliness of my solo expedition, because out there I couldn't solve anything anymore. I was just faced with nature and myself. So if I've figured, oh, I can't stand myself or my personal habits, and there's some that I wish I didn't have, tough luck. There's very little I can change out there about myself that's transformative and radical. So I had to come already into that expedition with a high amount of self-awareness. Who am I? What am I like? And self-acceptance. Okay, this is who I am. I'm that person that always runs late in the morning. I'm the person that can drag their feet for hours and just look at the watch 3 times in a minute, hoping that the time will pass. Like, I need to live with that. And I need to make things work with who I am. And there's no excuses. I can't say, oh, I did this because of, or he suggested that, therefore I did that, or, he was so slow, so I went slow. No excuses, just ownership. And what I found really, really helpful is that when I was alone there, I had to make all decisions myself. And I think that is something that we need to do a lot more often. Not looking left and right, but being centered and saying, okay, this is what I want and this is how I want to do this.
Hi, this is your host Christian speaking. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation as much as I did preparing and moderating it. It's one of my specialities and passions to unlock the wisdom and insights of exceptional people as a moderator and facilitator. So if you want your next strategy workshop to be a success or want to engage in productive individual sparring sessions as a leader, let's get in touch. Check out my agency, Sparkr, which serves change makers and innovators. Learn more on the website. You find the link in the show notes. And now, let's spark you up and get back to this inspiring episode of the Sparkr Podcast. This extreme ownership, I think that's fascinating and a big virtue. I think for no matter if you are an adventurer or an entrepreneur or executive. So I would assume this is like one virtue that adventurers and entrepreneurs, for example, share with each other. What are maybe other things where you believe that we can learn from each other or get inspired by each other?
Well, I hope not so much. I would say Roald Amundsen, he was one of the early polar explorers. He said, adventure is just bad planning. So if you go on an adventure, it means you just didn't care for a good plan for what you're going to do. And I genuinely like to reach my goals, so I don't like to go without a plan. But yeah, let's take the expeditionist. And I think I want to put it into 3 categories. The first one is that you have to think big. Dare to go for big goals. Don't think you're not capable of them. And then, of course, make that right plan and get the right preparation in place. Think big. And then you have to show grit. The courage of taking that leap of faith into the unknown. The courage to face the storms, the adversity when it happens. The drive and willingness to tackle all those hurdles along the way. It takes grit. And then thirdly, stay fit. And I almost mean that in the Darwinistic way. Stay adapted to the environment that will change. Yes, I had a really good Excel spreadsheet that told me how many kilometers at which hour of the day on which day of my expedition I would accomplish. But when suddenly the surface is completely bumpy, or the snow is very sticky and soft, or the wind is strong and heavy, that plan means nothing. So stay fit, adapt to the environment that you can't change, and make sure that you remain able to perform day after day after day. We're talking about 58 days. That's nothing. With a startup, you're talking about years and years and years of remaining able to perform. So you can't burn out yourself on a certain period of time, hoping that somehow everything will be good afterwards. Think big, show grit, stay fit.
Stay fit, this adaptability and so on. I think that reminds me of a quote. I believe it was Muhammad Ali who said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And I could imagine that it's the same with your situation. I'm sure you are perfectly prepared. You plan a lot. But then how often has it worked according to plan? Maybe 5% of the time, or what's the ratio?
Yeah, I don't have a ratio, but yeah, I did get like a friendly message from my expedition mentor who said like, oh, your Excel spreadsheet at home makes a great story, but Antarctica has different plans for you. And he was very, very right. I hardly ever went according to plan, but with that plan, I knew right now I'm far behind because that storm really stopped me. And then I had this section with blue eyes and perfect sunshine. I was like, I need to go well above plan because I need to catch up on what I just missed out on. And what if there's another storm coming or another challenge coming that is going to throw me back? I need to build up a buffer so that I'm ready to absorb the next challenge. And without the plan, I would have had no orientation. I wouldn't know if I was doing good or not. Would my food suffice? Would my fuel suffice? Would the time span before the sun doesn't rise anymore in Antarctica suffice? I needed to have a plan so I could calibrate and constantly readjust.
Okay. And you mentioned also earlier that grit or resilience, willpower is also one of these virtues. Is this something that you were just born with, or is this also part of training? And if so, how do you train?
I come from a region where people are known to be stubborn. Like people in Germany joke about it. So that helps some level of stubbornness. But willpower actually can be trained. There's a lot of scientific research that says willpower and tenacity are formed in the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, which is a part of our brain that has a high plasticity. So it can grow. It can literally grow. And the way it grows is simply by being used. So doing things we don't want to do grows our AMCC. And that helps us be more disciplined, have more willpower, have more drive. It's as simple as that. So obviously, all my expeditions have done that. Getting up in the morning when your tent is frozen, every move causes an ice shower into your face. It's -30, -40, and even the stove is too cold to burn because the fuel gets too cold on the metal. It takes willpower to get out of that situation. It takes willpower to go that one more step when you're feeling tired and sleepy and perhaps even drunk on that mountain. So many things take willpower, but it can even be the small things in your everyday life. Wait 5 more minutes before you eat your meal, or turn on the cold shower for 10 or 30 seconds. Do a little exercise after lunch that you would normally not do. It's tiny things that grow your willpower.
So it's cold showers for all of us, I would say this evening or tomorrow. And let's hope that it works out. Another part of training is also, I mean, we talk now a lot about like ownership, grit, so like focus on you as a person, but you also operate in a team. Climbing a mountain, that's, I guess, always a group. I mean, this Antarctica expedition was an exception, I guess. So how do you prepare a team, or how do you build a team so that it can function so well under pressure? Because the team might make the difference if you live or die. How do you get this team spirit together?
I think it starts with being united for the same goal. It's so obvious, but it's critical. Like, we need to want to achieve the same thing, and we want to get there, and we need to know that we need each other to do that, to get there. Like this, yeah.
And I guess also agreement on what price are we willing to pay to reach the goal.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would have been exactly the next point. Like, how we need to define the rules by which we play or operate in advance. At 8,000 meters, when people are altitude sick, feel close to the summit, are in the summit fever, some of you might have heard that word, you are not going to have a debate as to who has decision-making authority, who has to go down with that person that should go down. Why should they go down? Did we decide on any turnaround times or any fixed deadlines or deliverables? Like you have to have reached that point by that time? We need to define the rules in advance, because under pressure, no one thinks clearly anymore and you make poor decisions. And then when we're out there, when we have agreed on all of that, then it's really, really important that we communicate very clearly. So when we use a radio, usually it's not just one person delivering a message, but it's also the other person confirming what they understood. Misunderstandings can be fatal. We make sure everybody has responsibility. Like, the most dangerous situations are those when you are among peers. Either everybody's a mountain guide or everybody is not a mountain guide, but at the same level of qualification. And then you enter a dangerous situation. Like, for example, you've seen in the video like a situation with very deep snow in the bottleneck section of K2. And then everybody's looking at the others. Are they continuing? If they continue, I will continue, even though I'm not feeling very good about the situation, but I mean, they're continuing. And nobody wants to be the first person that stands out from the group and says, hang on, we need to reassess the situation. The risk is maybe different from what we thought initially. Let's check in and maybe go down because I'm sensing something. So everybody has to take responsibility, no matter what level they're at.
So it's like this interesting combination of, on the one hand, you have to work really well as a team, but you are not allowed to be like a herd of sheep that just blindly does what everybody else does. You have to find this right balance of ownership, but at the same time, subordinating yourself in the team. Do I understand that correctly? I'm now confirming back.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the one thing is like the clear authorities and rules and definitions of who does what, when, where, and why. But then as we go, maybe the person that has the most authority, that is a decision maker and that has a final say, like you go down because you're looking like you're getting altitude sick and you are going to go down with that person. Maybe he's not seeing something. It doesn't mean he's God only because he has more decision-making authority. And maybe I'm walking further in the front because I'm breaking trail now, or I'm walking further in the back and I hear some cracking from a serac, or I can see that there's some loose rocks already coming down somewhere and he doesn't see it because he's maybe focused on something else. I have to say something. Or if he's making a decision that perhaps is not as informed because I have an additional piece of information, I need to tell him. So everybody needs to keep their heads on and not turn them off.
Okay. Something that I also want to ask you, and I think there's another parallel to entrepreneurship or being in the business world in general. Obviously, you can only do great work and reach your goals when you have great teammates, the right teammates. And my question is, how do you choose? How do you find out if this is the right person to risk my life with, so to speak? Are you looking for like these hard facts, credentials of, this person has climbed this mountain 10 times already? Is it like the hard facts? I guess it's a combination. Is it also just instinct? How do you choose the people?
I think for me, the number one factor is, can I trust the other person? And trust is a lot driven by integrity, which is there congruence between what they say and what they do? And I think we usually sense whether we feel like we can trust somebody or not, because we can subconsciously observe a lot of those details, like, is this person acting with congruence and integrity? Beyond that, I think it's almost the same as in classical recruiting. The one part is skills. Is this person competent enough to to climb the route, that mountain, or go on that polar expedition that we've decided on? Like, do they have the right skills? And the other part is, do they have the right attitude? Like, beyond the other trustworthy, also, are they able to care for themselves? You'd be surprised by how few people are able to care for themselves and for others. And for that purpose, are they also alert? Like, are they able to absorb what's going on around them beyond like the sheer next step?
Have you been in the situation where you have this conflict or this trade-off of on the one hand, this person has the experience, has climbed that mountain many times, but my gut feeling, trust, not so much, or the other way around, lots of trust, but not the credentials. How do you deal in these kind of circumstances?
When I climbed Mount Everest in 2021, I went with a Sherpa. It was still my early days in the 8,000 meter peak world, and was the last mountain actually I climbed together with a Sherpa in that setup. And initially I had a Sherpa that I knew very well, and we had a really good relationship. It was a COVID year, expedition got cancelled, they all went home. And in the end, I was kind of like thrown together in a pairing with a Sherpa that I met for the first time at 6,400 meters the day before summit push. And even though we connected on a friendly level, when we embarked on the summit night, there was zero trust. He went ahead so far at some time that he couldn't even hear me when I was screaming for him to wait. What if I had an issue, like a real issue, and needed his help? When I gave him my camera at the balcony at 8,400 meters so he could take some pictures of me going up the ridge, he left it at the balcony and pretended at the summit he had no idea where it was, and on the way down he was like, "Oh, here's your camera, by the way." There were a lot of those small moments where I was like, I can't rely on him. And my consequence was, I need to make sure that I'm self-reliant here. And so I took bottled oxygen from 8,400 meters onwards, because I knew I was not as well acclimatized as this year. With my acclimatization and with the weather conditions, it was quite windy at night, and with a person I'm not able to trust, it's not safe for me to continue without oxygen. So I pulled the trigger to make myself be self-reliant.
So it sounds to me like you were sensing that it's not right, and you were willing to, in a sense, sacrifice at least parts of your goals to get back into a zone again of ownership, of this self-reliance.
Yep.
Okay, very interesting. And I think a lot of the things that we heard now sound familiar to me, to also good traits of a leader, a person in a leadership role. You also have a career as a manager in the business world. Sometimes you are making a break because you disappear to Nepal. But if you are in a leadership position today, how do you transfer your learnings and your expertise into the business context, and how does it influence the way you would act as a leader in the business context?
I think people are people no matter whether they're out on an expedition or in the business environment. We're people after all. It's just that on those expeditions, usually everything is a little compressed and perhaps densified and intensified. But I think overall, the principles will still remain the same. If I go into the business context, the first thing is making sure we're all aligned, that we're here for overall the same goal, and that we're aligned on who is contributing what and who has which authorities and what are the things we all subscribe to when we're here. So that starts in the same way, and I would expect also that everybody takes responsibility for what they're doing. I think one element that I've sensed a lot in the mountains, especially when you go as a rope team, and you can sense it when you go as a rope team here in the Alps, just as well as in the Himalayas, is the power of small gestures. Never underestimate the power of small gestures. It can be that you come into camp and you're drained and you're tired and cold and exhausted. And then there's somebody who arrived there before you and he says, do you want a cup of hot water? It can mean the world. Or somebody who turns around and checks if you're still okay on summit night. I experienced that on K2, where the Sherpa that I climbed with on K2, he stopped every now and then. He looked around at me and said, are you okay? He checked. And it gave me so much inner strength. And it gave me so much confidence that I could continue because somebody else was also there by my side. In a rope team, when somebody is stumbling and about to fall, the person that notices that before the other person falls, or the person that hears the breath and hears that somebody is maybe not okay anymore and needs to go slower or needs to take a break. Those small gestures make a huge difference to how empowered we feel.
So it's ownership for yourself, but also caring for your teammates. All right. Unfortunately, we're already kind of like approaching the last few minutes of this conversation. So maybe let me switch it up a little bit and ask some quick questions. So the basic question is, what does XYZ mean for you? And now come a few words. What does comfort mean for you or mean to you?
I've got an ambivalent feeling about comfort. One is it's comfortable. The other is it can be numbing. After a few days in Antarctica, that small little red tent, that had become my comfort zone. All of a sudden, out there on this hostile planet, or continent, not planet, sorry, on this hostile continent, I had found a little comfort zone. And by the end of the day, I was always so excited to set up my tent and get into the sleeping bag. It was like the highlight of my days. But because I had this comfort zone, it was so hard to get out every morning. And it always was holding me back, like it's so nice in here. And the sun is shining and it's warming up like a greenhouse. I don't want to go out. So very ambivalent feeling.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What does luxury mean to you, or what is luxury for you?
Being able to make choices. I'm saying that knowing that I'm terrible at making choices. But that's a form of freedom, being able to choose what I want to do with my life, what I want to do in general. Yeah.
That's a perfect segue to my other two words. What does freedom mean to you? What is this to you?
I guess, yeah, they're very interrelated. Freedom for me is being able to think and act for myself according to my convictions, of course, also in accordance with societal norms, I guess. Schopenhauer was a German philosopher. He had an interesting definition of freedom also. He said we're all driven by the will to live and the will to strive. And I think evolution actually confirms what he's saying. Like we always want to go further, faster, are always looking for something. And he said, freedom is when we overcome that striving. When we learn to be free of desires and of needs. When we learn to be present in the moment. And for him, looking at art or also listening to music were the two moments where you could feel free, because your brain would suddenly quiet that inner voice of like, oh, I still need to do that, and I haven't done that, and I need to get there. And you'd be just there. And I believe that in nature, like out there when I'm on expedition, I also have those moments of full presence and the freedom from everything else.
Beautiful. And now the last one is, what is a meaningful life for you?
easy questions today.
Yes, of course. Because you risk it all the time.
Actually, I think sometimes we overrate life and our own meaning. Like, who can just say the names of the last 10 US presidents, the most important people in the world for many, many years? Like, probably no one. Like, how important am I? How important are we? We're not that important. But we can make life meaningful for ourselves. And that is by, I think, on the one hand side, I think the old ancient Greek, they had this word eudaimonia, which I love. Or eudaimonia, I don't really know how to pronounce it actually. It means you coincidentally find your happiness by striving well. You're trying to do the best with the virtues, with the qualities that are given to you and that are unique to you, and you try to make the most of them. For yourself, for others, for the world, if you like. Striving well, doing what we can and enjoying the progress and the journey.
I almost don't dare to ask another question because this would be such a beautiful way of closing this conversation. But just one last question. I believe this snowstorm in Antarctica that you had to traverse through, I think that lasted 7 days. Is that correct?
Yeah.
7 days of snowstorm, brutal, hostile continent. What do you prefer? 7 days of snowstorms or 7 days of a Zoom meeting marathon in your home office?
I've had both. I prefer the snowstorm because the good thing is, afterwards you've got your personal hero story. What can you say after that Zoom event?
Fantastic. So you are definitely creating your hero story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us, and a big round of applause for you, Anja.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Anja for sharing her insights from all her astonishing expeditions. For more exciting conversations with exceptional minds in business, science, and technology, please consider subscribing to the Sparkr Podcast in your favorite podcast app. And if you liked this episode, please leave a 5-star rating for the show. That would be very much appreciated. And if you want to continue straight away with another episode of the Sparkr Podcast, I recommend you a conversation on resilience with neuroscientist and stress researcher Professor Gregor Hasler, or a conversation with ex-NASA director Thomas Zurbuchen on how to build and lead high-performing teams that put robots on Mars. Just look out for these and more episodes in the Sparkr Podcast feed. I'm looking forward to welcoming you back to another episode soon, where I uncover the mindsets, tactics, and insights of exceptional people to enable you, today's innovators, strategists, and leaders. It was a great pleasure having you with me this episode. I appreciate your time, and I wish you lots of success on your next expedition.